Hello, everybody, and welcome to uh, Web Developer Session 1, Building B2B Client Portals in HubSpot, Transforming Customer Experience Through Data-Driven Delivery. Speaker 1, Chris Carolan, a HubSpot creator coach, focused on RevOps, focused on CX, focused on quote to cash, and really that experience that we can give to clients through web portals and websites and personalization thanks to CRM data. And I'm with fellow speaker Erin Wiggers. How you doing today, Erin?
Doing awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite thing to talk about, so I'm super excited for this.
I know, right? So exciting. Let's dive in. We're just going to focus on first, what are the current state expectations, and of course our favorite example, the Amazon experience. So I'm going to show a quick kind of anatomy, the way I look at Amazon pages, including the front page, some product pages, and order portal pages. And I'm starting to understand I view website pages and web experiences very differently than the rest of the world, probably. So I'm always looking for like object style information that is clearly personalized, and how are they storing it in their system? Like, where would it be stored in HubSpot, things like that. So just some things to highlight. We see I'm logged in, right? So they know me, they know my order history. So basically they're connected to my contact record, and everything that's associated with my contact record is helping display things on this page, right? So Amazon Prime, I'm a Prime customer. I am a subscriber of Prime. I pay a subscription annually, right? Where are they delivering to? They're showing me that right here. And if I were to go and update that information, that's updating some sort of, let's say a company style record with location, address stuff on there, right? Then we've got pick up where you left off, like viewing history, right? Specific products, things I bought in the past. Do I want to buy them again? Right? So past orders, maybe from an order object, related stuff I might be interested in. Right? So if we click on any of this stuff, look at more and buy again. Now it's a specific order portal experience. So not only is it past orders, but it's maybe things I've ordered like individually. So think line items here. And a lot of the work I focus on is helping to provide that individual, line item visibility, because that's often what we care about as customers, not necessarily the status of the whole order, but everything inside of the order. And if we click over to our order screen, we see a track package, return items, view invoice. So all these things hopefully are ringing a bell. And if they don't, that's okay, because a lot of the stuff is new in HubSpot. But that's why we're talking about, the data model first, right? We want you to know that a lot of the magic that we're going to talk about is because we have all this data in the CRM. And since our website is right next to it, it becomes very easy to create these experiences. So getting the data model right, for me, when I'm doing these projects, that's like 80 to 90% of the work I'm doing with customers, to make sure they have their data model right, so that we can understand, hey, the guy that's doing shipping, we need him to make sure the tracking information is in here if we want to send it to the customer automatically, right? So all those data expectations of the customer, thanks to Amazon, that experience is coming our way too. And the cool thing now is that we can actually serve that experience easily, affordably inside of HubSpot. And here's a big part of the reason why, right? If you've been in HubSpot a while and you focus on marketing and sales, it's very possible you only think about contact company deals, right? Well, there's actually all these CRM objects now that are native, except for the blue ones. So I'm representing a couple that would be custom objects right now. This contracts object, hint, hint, is coming, thanks to cash flow, expecting that sometime this year to help with the quoting process and CPQ and stuff. But look at this. We've got product, payment links, carts, tickets, quotes, line items, payment, subscription, invoice, orders. right? We even got an object library that has appointments, courses, listings, services, which pro tip, if you don't have custom objects, just pretend this isn't the name and just use pipelines, and it can be whatever you want it to be. Right. So, and that's alongside all these engagement objects and these admin objects. So really, we're at a point where you can store whatever your data model is. This doesn't mean you have to create the data in HubSpot, but if it's in another system and it means we can bring it over to HubSpot and show it on a website very easily, then let's do that if we can. So of course, with objects, with records, right? Just went over the native objects, custom pipelines, very underutilized in the system right now. And it's really helpful if you can think about that. Like, let's say you get that signal from Amazon and it's shipped, it's out for delivery, it's delivered, right? Those are stages in a pipeline. And as we move away from contacts, companies, and deals, and even tickets, right? We can create that stage and gate experience to represent whatever we want. And it does a couple things for us. It allows us to very easily show status of things to the customer on websites or via email, but also that activates a lot of the automation like technology in HubSpot is by triggering stuff off of those deal changes, just like you're used to in deals and tickets, but now we're applying them at other spots in the system. Association labels has come a long way in the last year, and that enables like a billing contact, a shipping contact, different relationships with the company object, right? So we're moving past the days where every deal should only have one contact or one company, right? If you get 9 people involved in a deal, right, including the purchasing team that's going to need the contract right after you sell it to the decision maker, we need them attached, right? And we can easily associate them now and identify them as like the finance team or the purchasing team, right? Mm-hmm. That's just one example, but very powerful. And then, of course, custom objects, right? So custom objects, of course, only available at enterprise level. But if you're on a smaller team and you only need 1 or 2 sales or service seats, it's actually more affordable than it has been in the past if you just need a place to store your data and maybe want to show it on a portal. So with all that said, that's the native, capabilities without a lot of customization here on the CRM side. If you think about the difference between customization and configuration, right? Most of this is just, let's figure out what properties you need, where the data is stored, where it's showing up in the CRM so that we can easily maintain it, for our customers and create what we're about to show, pages that can almost mirror what we're seeing in the CRM, when we want to. And when you can create those experiences, if I see this in the CRM, I know the customer is seeing it here. All of a sudden, a lot of the back and forths about whether the data is right, which one are we looking at, just cuts down and creates much better experiences. But I'm going to quit yapping and let Erin show you some cool stuff.
Man, I'm excited. Yeah. So basically, dynamic pages are a way to display either custom objects or HubDB tables in a way that it uses the data that you already have, and you don't have to go into a page and set up the page and add all your data in. It's not duplicative. So I really like dynamic pages because it cuts down a lot on the work that you have to do on the CMS side to be able to spin up those pages. And so a dynamic page is basically consisting of 2 parts. You have a listing page, and then you have a details page. And something that's fully dynamic is going to be a single template and a single page that houses all of your information. So you would have one page, one template, and it shows all of your custom objects for, orders or something like that. And so I'm going to show you an example of a fully dynamic page. And then I've had a lot of clients who tell me that's just not flexible enough for me. And so they want to be able to use some of the data from the CRM, but still be able to play around with like the drag and drop on the CMS side. And so we're going to look at a dynamic hybrid that is still a single template, but you have one for the listing page and you have a different one for the details page. And the details page will be what I show you for the dynamic hybrid. So I share my screen here and also let's dive in. So this is a very, very basic example that I'm going to show you. It doesn't look like much, but it gets the job done. So we're on the dynamic page right now. You'll see up here, I've got just dynamic in the URL. So that's the main slug of the page. If we look at how this is set up, we'll go to template and down here. So I've got my data source as actually the service object, and then the dynamic page slug is going to be the record ID. So what that means is on my listing page, I have access to all of the services object in my portal. And then on a dynamic page, I have access to all the data for that single object. So when we look at that in practice here, so we've got our listing page, it's pulling in, I only have those objects. Let's take a look here. We see that it's pulling in the two objects that I have, and then they each have this read more that's going to link me to their dynamic details page. So you'll remember we made the record ID that page slug. So now when I land on this page, the code knows that, oh, I'm dealing with this ID. I'm dealing with this object. And so it's going to show me the name and the description and the status. So that's what a dynamic page is in general. And there are a couple of things that I do differently with dynamic pages that I really wanted to kind of show off here because I think it's really helpful. One of the issues that people have with dynamic pages is when you load it in the page editor, all you can see is the listing page. There's not natively a way to force that ID to see what the details page looks like at all. So typically what you're having to do is just publish it and then go look and then go back and make any changes. And yeah, fingers crossed. So I've come up with a system here for dynamic editing. So a lot of my modules that you're going to see are really flexible. So I'm going to pass in different objects and stuff because you can build all kinds of portals with this. But we're going to tell it which page we want to edit. And this is also a little bit of a different scenario because I also added a login page. We're going to ignore that for now and just focus on the listing and the details. So right now I'm seeing my listing. If I click on details, it's going to ask me what object I want to preview. So I'm going to click here. The styles are going to go wonky for a second. So I'm going to refresh the page. Now my styles look good. And also you'll notice here, I'm in the details area now. So I can fully drag and drop on a details page, which for developers, if you're putting together one of these dynamic templates, it's so much easier to just go in, build it in the drag and drop, and then activate developer mode. I don't know if everyone knows about this, but this is super clutch. And then you can go in and then just copy those sections as Hubble and drop it directly into your template here. So this is super helpful to be able to see what the details page looks like when you're editing and give your clients a little more flexibility with the template. So we'll go back to listing here and refresh.
Amazing, that, by the way.
Thank you. It was a unique system that I came up with because I was very tired of having that same problem over and over.
All right. Well, the back and forth too, right? Like
Sure.
A lot of what we're showing you here today is meant to be developed for you or your clients to be able to manage themselves later because there's always stuff that comes up. Any new property showing, customer cares about this object now.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this can be developed. So
Sure.
if you're not used to this experience, like maybe you're asking for it now, because this is a classic case of like when you're doing dynamic pages, it's like developer does it and then they show it to you. And it's like, no, it's not going to work. Do this, this, and this. And then you set it back, right? So much of this, when we talk about like total cost of ownership and the maintenance and manageability, like this is the power of HubSpot. And the other thing I want to highlight, the dynamic pages, like when a lot of people I talk to think about dynamic experiences, it's like, oh my gosh, do I have to create 1,000 pages? Right?
Right.
It's like, no, like it doesn't matter how many records in the CRM you have, you're creating one template, right?
Right.
So that gets us to the price. where maintaining the CRM is what maintains like the portal, right? So we're not having to go out to AWS or to build all this other infrastructure that needs to be maintained often by a third party, right? So all of these kind of shortcuts are a part of the true value of, kind of building this in one HubSpot portal.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of the main dynamic page. The dynamic hybrid is going to be different in that we'll look at, it's advanced. I don't have a data source selected. So this is just a regular old drag and drop page, but I wanted to be able to use those same modules and just essentially give the user something that they can play around with a little more. So when I edit this page, it doesn't edit all of the templates. So you could have this web application page have completely different modules, look completely different than anything else that you're showing. So it's a way to add a lot more flexibility, but these modules are just built to look for an ID to be passed to them. And so I've added this dynamic selector. And again, you're going to see this works across all objects. So I'm going to pass in the service, tell it which object, and now everything appears. So if I switch the object here, so now it's pulling in a different object. And again, this is the same kind of template, the same modules. The only real difference is that you're not adding that data source. One key thing to keep in mind, if you're doing it this way, the page slug will need, if you want to use a listing page, but you want the details page to be a hybrid, then you need to make sure that when you create it, you edit the slug to be / and then whatever your ID is, because you want it to kind of mirror this structure so that your code is consistent and you can have a listing page that is easy to click on and won't take you to the wrong page. So that's kind of how it looks on the front end. Do you want to dive into the code a little bit, or should we show the status tracker?
I think let's get into the status tracker, and then if we've got time, we can get into the code.
Sure. That's a good call. So status tracker is a custom module here, passing in my object, giving it a title, and then I'm telling it what property I want to track within here. So if you had different pipeline stages, or if it was a drop-down property even, you could set this up that way. But you'll notice I don't have any stages here. And that's because these stages are more for an override. I use a global module to label all of the stages or pipelines, because if I just return the value of that object, it's going to be a number. It's the ID and not the label. And so what I've created here is a global settings module where I have my status definitions down here, and each status has an ID and a label and a color that I have not implemented, but it has the ID and the label. And so in the UI, when this ID shows up, it knows to show that as new. So I have that for all of the labels here, and that's how those are showing up. And so when we go into the object, just do web applications. Let's look at our pipeline, drop new. There we go. And so now our status tracker is showing as new. So that's kind of an example of how this is like real-time updates. So if you're giving your client access to a page that's dynamic, you're giving them real-time access to what is happening in the CRM, which is a really cool thing to be able to do. So yeah, it's also a very frequent request to have one of these status trackers. So if anybody out there is looking for something to kind of build to, work on your skills, status trackers are where it's at for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, this is one of the easiest, it's easier to impress customers, to add a lot of value, right? If you are building any kind of portal, or you find yourself going back and forth a lot with like order status updates and, over the calls and emails. And that's why it only works if the system, the CRM is being updated, right? That's why we talked about going over process and data model and And if you're used to hearing like developers talk about APIs and stuff like that, this is why they all want them, because when you have APIs and access to IDs, like we can start to make stuff like this a lot more viable and work a lot better for you. So I'm going to share my screen now to wrap up. And I also going to show a version of trackers that I've been working on. There's so many different ways to slice
For sure.
and do this. And while always trying to make it like, okay, what's the easiest way for the client or the HubSpot user to be able to manage this, right? And so this is an example of when you have multi-records, like, so this is looking at deals. And right, it happens to be all in the same pipeline. And the way we do it is actually we tie a HubDB table that has all the pipeline stage IDs that then speaks to what is showing up on this object. And then if we want to see a different object, like let's say listings, now we see that object that's associated to the same contact record. So this is how we get to, maybe experiences where on the same page, maybe there's a module that shows invoices, a module that shows payments and subscriptions on the page, but they're all the same kind of module. So it gets easier to maintain and easier to understand. Like, okay, if I want to change a property, I'm going to come and do it the same way, like no matter what object, right? And then down here, we've got easy like color coding and like brand, making it your brand, like very easy to do as well. But there's lots of different ways to slice it. And it always starts with, what do you want your customers to see, like when they come in? Often aligns with like what you're wanting to communicate with them via calls or emails, right? Or the weekly, meeting where you do status updates. So really clutch in terms of, giving these experiences. These are just some examples, like the membership portal. Membership activity in HubSpot is very easy to set up. They're working on that. That team's been working on that a lot lately to make that possible. Now it's available at Pro. Content Hub Pro was enterprise for a long time. And these are just some examples of what we can do now and some examples that Erin has personally built out.
These were super fun. And it's a way to, because you're already collecting data in your CRM, right? And like you want it to be clean, you want it to, be as robust as possible. A membership portal is basically a way to monetize that by providing value to your customers with the data that you already have. And so I've built a ton of these. I really like the user managed idea. So people can create their own objects from the front end and then you approve them and then publish them. I've done, application tracking systems, learning management systems. Most recently did like a dealer portal for like a banking, like a financial services kind of thing where they're reselling like buy now, pay later type things. So really the possibilities are endless. If you have a chance to pitch this to a client, because I don't think it's a top of mind for a lot of people, but it could be such a huge driver for revenue for them. And they may just not know that HubSpot can do this. So, the more people who know, the better.
Yeah. Most of the time it's an awareness gap that we're trying to solve for. And then it can be very easy to get buy-in for something like this experience. And then that's where you got to give them the bad news that like, well, we got to figure out all your processes first, right, to make sure the customer can see the data. We went over the demos, and that's how we get to like the maintenance and scalability at the end of the day. You can actually provide very Amazon-like experiences, especially like seen some of the most complex CRM builds out there, right? Like all you have to do is layer the CMS on top of it. And it's just like a window if you want it to be a very clear window or a managed window. Maybe for some people there's shades over the windows, access to data, all that can be managed in HubSpot because we've got the smart CRM. By the way, AI getting involved now, helping you maintain stuff, right? And if you're worried about CRM data maintenance, you'd be surprised if you put forms in the right places, the clients will help you keep the information.
True.
Right.
So like incentivize giving your clients a way to give you data. Like
yes.
Such a smart move.
We've got the flexible and powerful CMS. We've got the operational extensibility. So no matter where the data is on our stack, if we need the customers to see it, we can now get it into HubSpot a lot easier, a lot more affordably than you might be used to with other systems. And then you've got the HubSpot community, now the Profoundly community, hopefully like talks like this that can be very easy to say, like it is a lot easier than we thought it was. There's so many developer resources out there that can show you how to do this stuff. And of course, with the goal of really making it unified, easy, and fast. And that is what it looks like to build. And I should have thought of this ahead of time. Profoundly portals for your clients. And I think that's where we're going to wrap it. It looks like time's up. So thank you so much, Erin.
Absolutely. And if anybody's interested, the code for this dynamic page that I showed is on my LinkedIn. You may have to scroll through some posts to get to it, but it says something about dynamic pages. So try searching for that or just hit me up and I will happily send it to you.
Yeah. And maybe she's hanging out in the Profoundly community sometimes too. We've got a web dev channel there where we can keep the conversation going. So thanks so much, Erin, and everybody have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you.